Since 2013, millennials have seen a 47% increase in major depression diagnosis. What's even more alarming than that statistic is that there's been a 20% increase in depression-related mortalities such as suicide and drug overdose. Which leads to ask the question, what is the cause of this drastic increase in depression rates? I think there are 5 major reasons why, and I'll tell you after the intro. The number one reason for the increase in depression rates? Financial security, or the lack thereof. Multiple studies have shown a link between depression and financial security. For example, a study done by the University of Southampton did a meta-analysis studying the link between mental health and unsecured debt, so things like credit card debt, student loan debt, personal loans, medical bills, and found that for those that had that type of debt, there was a 277% higher chance of being depressed than those that did not have debt. Which makes sense why millennials are more depressed, because on average, millennials carry about $40,000 in debt between student loans, credit cards, medical bills, and all those things. Bank of America published a report on the same subject. What they found was that compared to all other generations and age groups, millennials were the most likely to stress out about their finances on a daily basis. They also found that about 50% of millennials felt like they were behind in their retirement saving, felt like they were behind in their current job salary, and felt like they were behind in paying off debt. So, financial security. Number 2, loneliness. A recent poll by YouGov found that 30% of millennials, quote, always or often feel lonely. 27% said they had no close friends, and 30% said they don't have a best friend. We all know how important friends, family, partners are when it comes to eliminating feelings of loneliness. So the question becomes, why do millennials have less friends than people in the past? And the answer is, they're giving themselves less opportunities to make friends. Millennials are marrying later, so they stay single longer. They're less likely to be involved in their local political and religious activities, so you're not going to be making any friends at church or at a rally. They're less likely to make friends with their neighbors. And so we see that, by creating less opportunities to make friends, they have less friends. Number 3, burnout. Burnout is a difficult concept to explain in just a few words. So what I'm going to do is link my favorite article on the subject below. It's a BuzzFeed article, which usually I'm not a big fan of, but in this case, they did a wonderful job. Basically, it explains how millennials are overworked and they're not reaping the same rewards that generations past were. The American dream's kind of slipping away. But it's interesting for a generation known as being lazy and entitled. A study by Manpower Group actually found that 73% of millennials work over 40 hours a week, and 1 in 4 millennials work over 50 hours a week. A survey done later by a HR company called Paychex found that 56% of millennials feel like their job negatively affects their mental health, and about the same percentage also felt like their employer didn't do an adequate job of taking care of that mental health, meaning that their insurance benefit, either didn't cover visits for mental health or didn't have any training on the subject. And so we see a vicious cycle of
millennials being overworked, which leads to poor mental health, and then they don't have anywhere to turn to address that mental health, and then it gets worse.
Number 4, poor physical health. According to Cancer Research UK, they project that 7 out of every 10 millennials will be obese by the time they hit middle age. 7 out of 10. That's more obese than not obese. And obesity and depression have a weird relationship where they kind of feed off of each other. Now, there are many factors contributing to the poor health of millennials and the rising obesity rates. One of them being sleep deprivation. Now, studies are conflicting on the subject. Some are saying millennials get more sleep than previous generations, but overall the common theme is that millennials feel more exhausted and are sleep deprived, which then leads to poor eating habits as we eat later into the night. We feel exhausted, so we don't go work out, which leads to another point, which is sedentary lifestyles. Okay, the Physical Activity Council found that about 1 in 4 millennials are 0% active. They're just inactive altogether, which is a pretty alarming rate. We just get used to our busy lives of, driving our car everywhere, sitting down at work, and then coming home and binge watching Netflix or doom scrolling in bed. The third part of this poor physical health among millennials is our diet, our eating habits. A recent consumer report showed that we spend about just as much money on groceries as we do on eating out. And I can't imagine that the money we spend on groceries is all going to healthy fruits and vegetables and things like that. And so we're eating processed foods, we're eating unhealthy foods, and when we're consuming a lot of sugar and carbohydrates, it actually affects our mood negatively and leads to, in a lot of ways, depression, obesity, and some of these things we're talking about. Number 5, unhealthy social media consumption. Now, don't get me wrong, social media is a great tool. It's a great way to stay connected with friends and family. But on the flip side, when consumed irresponsibly, it actually has some pretty damaging effects. Now, there are 3 main ways that social media can actually lead you down the path to depression. One of them being feelings of inadequacy. Even though we know that social media is a highlight reel of everyone's best life, and it's full of filters to make everyone look like their best selves, we can still get caught up in feeling insecure about the own way that we look or what's going on in our lives. Number 2 is along the same lines, FOMO, fear of missing out. When we look at these highlight reels and all the great things that people are doing in their lives, it's easy to get caught in the trap of, wow, their life is better than mine, or they're living a more full or fun life than I am, which can bring on feelings of sadness, depression, and anxiety. And the third is isolation. So a study at the University of Pennsylvania found that high usage of Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram increases rather than decreases feelings of loneliness. Conversely, the study found that reducing social media usage can actually make you feel less lonely. So I think there's something to the amount of time we spend consuming social media. There you have it, guys. 5 reasons why depression rates are rising drastically among millennials. Now, I did not make this video to create feelings of doom and gloom. I'm simply trying to address and pinpoint the issues so that I can make videos in the future talking about how can we solve the problem, right? How can we improve our financial security? How can we improve our physical health? How can we reduce burnout? How can we consume social media more responsibly? So if you're interested in that content, please subscribe. Look forward to talking to you on the next one. See ya.